Yes, when you have to do firefighting, you have to manage. Due to showmanship, people do firefighting and come out as a hero, but nobody recognizes the fellow who is working to prevent a fire. Nobody is appreciated for being diligent, vigilant, systematic, methodical, scientific, to prevent any mishap from happening. See, what happens is that managers at senior levels are taught to have a helicopter view of the situation. It's nice, helicopter view may look bewitching, even for most mundane scenarios. But also it's a fact that somebody who's having helicopter view, he cannot change any situation on the ground. So we require management grads whose feet are on ground. Suppose you consider the three words QCD. Quality, cost, delivery. If you try to chase target, if you tighten the target for quality, your delivery will suffer, your cost will suffer. The three entities are interrelated, they are not independent. Now what our companies do is, they have a champion for quality, they have a champion for delivery, they have a champion for cost. And each champion starts trying to improve his own KPI at any cost. Whenever you say something at any cost, it loses business focus. There has to be a commensurate cost. So everybody is spot jogging, everybody is showing lot of activity, but there is little progress. Everybody shows he's a great performer, but business is in doldrums. Hello friends, I'm Avinash Khare, your host, and I welcome you to this series, Technocrat Talks. In this series, we will be dwelling on our blind spots, which have shackled our thinking and which have preconditioned our perceptions into a certain template. We have been suffering because of that. This we are doing through application of engineering sense and cold logic. Welcome to this analytical discussion. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. Please press the bell icon to get the notifications. If you like the talk, please like it and share it with your friends, so that we increase the community of like-minded, curious minds to take the movement forward. Without much ado, let us start today's talk.
Do you believe the emphasis on management in the industry is necessary or excessive?
First of all, we have to debate whether managing is a good word or it is a bad word. Now, normally it is regarded that manager is a dignified post and managing is a high-profile, coveted job, generally overrated, grossly over technical jobs. But then either your dad gives you 500 rupees a week of pocket money, or he gives you only 200 and says, beta itna hi hai, manage. Now, is managing good word or bad word? So managing comes into picture when something is not what it ought to be. Okay. Ideally, if everything works as it ought to work, then you have to merely follow the system. And clerks are required to follow the system. Managers are not required for that. Now, when do we have to manage? We have to manage when something is not what it should be, or when we do not have a process, or we do not want to follow the process, or we want to get things out of turn, or there is a personality conflict to be resolved. Okay. So managing is the escape route when some things go haywire. Now, should it be desirable to manage? And excessively managing means, because we have so many managers, so they have to have a job. So they keep managing. But whether it should be required, whether it is called for, whether it is desirable, it's anybody's guess.
Since when did the industry start depending on managers?
No, basically it is like this. Either you have the full process and you are mentally and physically prepared and equipped to follow that process end to end. You are ready to go into details. You are ready to go for hard grind. You are not shirking away work. You are not looking for shortcuts to success, right? If all that is there, then managing was not required. Okay. But then people wanted shortcuts. People did not want to go into details. And they wanted to float on the top. Now, if somebody is floating on the top, he has to manage. Because you are riding an elephant, but the elephant is not in your control. What does one do? You have to manage. So that is when it comes to management and the need to manage. So industry, Indian industry is known for taking shortcuts. So they have taken shortcuts and adopted this. That, okay, instead of going in any details, allocating resources, going through the process in detail, you just appoint a manager and say, okay, you manage. And manage he does. Okay. So that's how it started. Another history is that, see, all these management courses, management institute, B schools, of course, when things became difficult, became sophisticated, became complex, complexity ridden, there was certainly a need for a formal education in these areas. But then primarily when they started with an idea of being able to promote somebody faster than others with due justification. So these courses were started as a hyped courses. Though the content, whatever is taught in top B school is also taught in roadside institutes. The exam is similar. The syllabus is similar. So what is different then? The only elements which are different is one is personality development of communication skill and networking. Okay. Now these things are also important. These are requirement of business, all said and done. Somebody wants a leadership role, then this is what is required also. Yeah. So yes, but then whatever is the syllabus as compared to academic level or you say the difficulty level, it is not a comparison with the technical education. You don't solve differential equations in management courses. Okay. Things are very simple. And at times, I feel that these courses are like candy floss. A small thing is made to look bigger and attractive by packaging, by puffing up. But in the end, it boils down to a spoonful of sugar. Nothing more. So you can spend whole day in these sessions, management courses type of sessions, leadership development and all, blah, blah, blah. Whole day of entertainment, nice discussion, nice interaction. Okay. But in the end, what is the takeaway? Takeaway is a spoonful of sugar, finally. Okay. As against that, in our technical courses, if I teach for 1 hour, I teach at least 40-50 slides in 1 hour. But here, the gist of whole course may be 10 slides maximum for whole day course. So that's the difference in content and depth and details. So it is made to look attractive, it is made to look palatable, it is made to look easily digestible for those who can afford, certainly. And then it is hyped. You have nice eminent speakers who give you a lot of stories and case studies, which are of course often concocted also. The real reasons are something else and what is discussed is totally off. But then yes, as a cerebral exercise, it is good. It is entertaining. It's a good time pass. Good personality development, good communication skill. No denying of that. Good networking. Yes. But then whether it will help somebody in day-to-day working, no, it's a big question mark. Whether it will help in day-to-day working in a business environment, real business environment, in Indian context, no.
In the last 60 years, Japan has been instrumental in developing several management techniques. Would you like to comment on the purest form of these techniques? Are they useful? And are they being implemented properly in India?
Talking of implementation first, you see how we have implemented. We have implemented by overrating managers, by making the leaders at the supreme level, right? So we have started on wrong foot. In Japan, it doesn't happen like that. In Japan, in a team, the person who is a manager is probably the oldest person, probably a person with some physical limitation. That's why he's given that job of managing. And by no means he is superior to others in a team. He's not overrated, he is not regarded superior. That superiority complex, so to say, has been added in our Indian context. It's not there in Japan, let me tell you. And there are not so many managers in any organization. And talking of techniques, yes, they have Toyota production system, famous with lot of Japanese jargons which are used in India too. In everyday presentations you see those things. Okay. Now those jargons are actually peddled by consultants. Because see, the concepts are very simple and common sense. But consultants have a business to make it look difficult, make it look sophisticated. So what better than putting a Japanese word for simple things? So that's how those things have evolved. Of course, there are vested interests to promote those and hide behind those words. Whether or not it is useful, yes, those are certainly useful if it is translated into Indian context in Indian way. We are not Japanese. Our mindset is not Japanese. We can't do what they are doing there. If we are able to translate it in Indian context, yes, it is useful. Following anybody who is successful is in fact useful. So also this one. But whatever Japanese companies I have personally observed, I have not seen any of these techniques being used, frankly. Mostly they have only exported these terms to us and countries like ours. But what they follow is something else. What they follow is something else, but that we are not able to make out what they actually follow. Okay. But yes, they have teamwork, they have group participation. Nobody is superior in a group. Equality is there, respect is there, technology is respected, technocrats are respected. That much I have observed. And real innovation is given importance, it is given priority. See, for example, there is a famous term, Japanese term used called Kaizen. Okay. Kaizen is continuous improvement. Now, originally Kaizen started in a limited way with limited focus. And that limited focus was removing wasteful movements by drawing a spaghetti diagram of movements of material and men and documents, and then doing some optimization in the layout, in the workflow to reduce the wasteful movement content, because certainly when somebody is moving, he is not producing. So it is a non-productive activity in any case. So the focus was that when it started. But then gradually, all these initiatives, what happens that everybody tries to make his umbrella bigger and bigger. So they try to cover everything under the same umbrella. So they expand the scope and include many things. And after a while you wonder that what TPM does and what Kaizen does and what 5S does and what all these initiatives does, they all boil down to the same thing. And then they say that this is subset of that and that is subset of this, and all that sophistry and debate starts. But then basically all these terms and all these things had limited focus when they started. And for that aspect, they were really good. Once you start expanding your umbrella to cover everything and start showing that everything is under my umbrella, then it loses focus. Focus has always to be one. If you have multiple focal points, then basically it amounts to saying that you have no focus. Because what happens, there are conflicting parameters. Suppose you consider the three words QCD. Quality, cost, delivery. Okay, three things only. I am simplifying three, not 5, 6. Not SQDCME. Okay, just QCD. Now, the thing is, if you try to chase target, if you tighten the target for quality, your delivery will suffer, your cost will suffer. The three entities are interrelated, they are not independent. They are not independent, they are interdependent, always. So if you tighten one, the other get affected adversely. Now what our companies do is, they have a champion for quality, they have a champion for delivery, they have a champion for cost. And each champion starts trying to improve his own KPI at any cost. Okay. So someday we chase quality at any cost. Someday we chase delivery at any cost. Someday we pursue customer satisfaction at any cost. Someday we have employee morale at any cost. Safety at any cost. And even cost cutting at any cost. How do you like it? The thing is, whenever you say something at any cost, it loses business focus. In business, things don't happen like this. You can't do anything at any cost. There has to be a commensurate cost. Right? So once you start having independent champions and you divide the KPIs like we do, this is what happens. So everybody is spot jogging, everybody is showing lot of activity, but there is little progress. So this is another phenomena which is seen. Lot of activity, but little progress. Okay. Everybody shows he's a great performer, but business is in doldrums.
Do you think the current focus on soft skills and personality development in management education is appropriate, or would you like to see more focus on technical skills?
Managers have to have technical orientation. They have to have a technical bent of mind, and they have to be mentally prepared to go in detail, take a deep dive. If you have the mindset that we know we will only swim on the top, we will float on the top without going through any depth, then it doesn't work. There has to be a preparedness to take a deep dive if required. And in fact, there is a new term evolving, it's called techno managers. Okay. Managers who are technically also very sound and they are prepared to take a deep dive in technology when time comes. Okay. So I think the need is for having more and more techno managers. Rather than somebody who is just playing with an Excel sheet or PPT and beating everybody with that, with those numbers. No. You require somebody who can genuinely himself take a deep dive. See, what happens is that managers at senior levels are taught to have a helicopter view of the situation. It's nice, helicopter view may look bewitching, even for most mundane scenarios. And you don't see the real pain points in a helicopter view. But also it's a fact that somebody who's having helicopter view, he cannot change any situation on the ground unless his feet are on ground. So we require management grads whose feet are on ground. They know the ground realities. Okay. And they are not just having helicopter view and deciding based on some overall oversimplified data points. Okay. They have to be ready to go into detail. Now, ironically, what happens that many times in corporate offices, you have very senior level people, say an HR person. Now, when it comes to downsizing, there may be some business requirement where this thing may come. Generally, they are reluctant to go in detail while doing that. Because they say if we go in detail, then it will be very difficult to do anything. So they choose deliberately to shut their eyes, restrict only to helicopter view, don't come anywhere near the ground reality, and then decide something based on that. Now that is, I think, doing more damage to the situation. Okay. Managing complexity is an attribute which is required. But first of all, we should have all the effort to reduce complexity. We should not have to manage complexity. But then, okay, if it has to be managed, yes, you have to have somebody who is used to dealing with complexity and who is not shying off away from complexity by doing oversimplification. I have seen many top managers retorting when they are shown a lot of data. Don't show me, I don't have time. Just show me, tell me the summary. In a single slide, just show me this data. Means the people are not mentally ready to go in detail. They can't deal with the details. That is the problem. They should be ready to deal with the details. One good thing about the management is, and what ought to be, I believe, is management courses do one thing very good, that they give an idea of proportions, an idea of magnitudes. Otherwise, you catch hold of any graduate engineer, ask him, what do you think is the government's expenditure per day? How much do you think it costs to ply city buses for each day? Now, normally, graduate engineers are never taught to have the idea of such magnitudes. But management education, through their training, does inculcate this aspect that, okay, if somebody walks into a factory or is standing in front of a building, he is able to immediately estimate what would be the cost of this approximately. And how much worth of work would be done in this particular factory. At a glance, they develop a sense to be able to predict fairly accurately. Now, that kind of training is indeed very useful. So this is something which we should be doing more. Giving an idea of magnitudes, giving an idea of response times, giving an idea of, what it takes, what input gives what output, the transfer function in technical terms. Yes.
In your opinion, what are the negative consequences of having too many managers in an organization?
Hey, you have people who are taught how to manage, not how to follow system. So they will not follow the system. If the system is there, they will find flaws with the system. They will find ways of defeating the system and achieving what they are supposed to achieve in terms of their KPIs. They will botch up all your systems. So if there are simply too many people, too many managers, one thing is that how do you distribute KPIs? How do you distribute deliverables? And many times, since we have that bell curve and all that complexity already, it's difficult to make out if a senior manager, what is his personal contribution to his KPIs. That is, whatever targets he is supposed to have achieved. What is his individual contribution in that? Or is it just the summation of his subordinates' targets? Suppose I am the senior manager, I have 4 fellows under me. I am supposed to save 1 crore rupees. I will divide by 4 and give to 4 of my cronies. Now, whatever saving has been there is achieved by those 4 people actually. I can just do a sigma and claim that I have saved so much. What is my personal contribution? Now, that becomes very difficult to assess when there are too many managers, because the roles will become overlapping, the KPIs will become overlapping, and then it becomes very difficult to see who has actually done what. And then there are all kind of things like passing the buck, credit snatching. Okay. When people write their strength and weaknesses, they are taught to write weakness, which is a strength actually. Now that defeats the purpose of asking the question. That defeats the purpose of objective analysis. They are trained to say that only. Strength will be a strength. Weakness will be a strength shown as a weakness. Now what is this? Doesn't mean that they have no weaknesses. They certainly have. It's not that they don't know, they know also. They know and everybody else also knows. But then for representation, And managers are also taught one thing, which is window dressing. How to make things look better. So, let us see what do they manage. If the result comes, then they don't have to manage. Okay. If the result comes automatically, then what is there to manage? Okay. If the result doesn't come, then comes the need to manage. And then what do they manage? Okay, they manage performance. They manage perception of performance. They manage performance of perception, which is window dressing put together. Okay. Okay. Showing something which is not the real thing. It's a creation of false perception. Okay. So that's what they end up doing in the end. Misrepresenting, twisting facts, finding scapegoats. And when manager comes, he is given a big job. Where does he start? He starts with finding out who he should fire if something goes wrong. So he will divide the work into fragments, and for each thing going wrong, he identifies a person who can be hanged if that thing goes wrong. Which means that he is a slippery character. Tel laga ke baitha hai wo. Okay. He will not be caught unaware anytime. He will always slip out and put somebody else, hang somebody else in his place. The so-called Markov punters. He will identify. If quality becomes the issue, the quality man will be hanged. What is the justification? Neither the quality man decides the specifications of your product. He doesn't decide the tolerances. He doesn't select the machines. He doesn't design the production process. He doesn't operate the machine. Yet you hold him accountable for the outcome of quality. What can you do? What can you do? This is a scapegoat. Similarly, production man. Similarly, maintenance man. Okay. So, too many managers spoil the broth. So, in the plant, I feel there should be minimal managers, and we should stop, for heaven's sake, we should stop overrating them. Let us be objective. Let us be fair. And let us give technocrats their due. Let us respect the difficulty level of whatever they are doing. Let us understand the difficulty involved in each job. And for that, if we have to go in details, yes, that's what we have to go in details. We should be ready for that. We should not say, time nahi hai, I can't go in those many details. Just give me one-page summary. Just show me a slide showing the monthly performance. That would be shutting the eyes from reality.
You have mentioned that there should ideally be no need for management if things were done properly. Can you give us some examples of situations where management is necessary despite best efforts to avoid it? Basically, where is it really required?
When things are not entirely predictable, when things don't happen the way you have envisaged, then there is a need to manage. When there are some surprises, yes, there may be a need to manage. But then surprises should be few and far between. You can't plan for surprises to come every day. Right? So, firefighting, yes, when you have to do firefighting, you have to manage. Or when there is a personality conflict or some conflict of values, value systems, yes, you may have to manage sometimes. When there is an ego conflict, you may have to manage sometimes. But what happens as a fallout of this is that due to showmanship, because showmanship is what is overrated. So people do firefighting and come out as a hero. That's what they would like to do. But nobody recognizes the fellow who is working to prevent a fire. Nobody is appreciated for being diligent, vigilant, systematic, methodical, scientific, to prevent any mishap from happening. Because if a mishap doesn't happen, nobody realizes what the fellow has done. So people get automatically tuned that, okay, let situation blow, then we will come and manage. Then we show our mettle. Okay? Now that is the negative aspect. We let things deteriorate, we let things collapse, and then we come with a sword and manage on the forefront. And then we become hero. But the question that senior management should be asking, पहले ये बता आग क्यों लगी? We will see later what you have done. Why did it happen first? Okay. Unfortunately, those questions are not being asked.
How can organizations strike a balance between having enough managers to handle necessary tasks and not overburden the workforce with excessive management?
See, our organizations as it is are very tall by any standard. Just because we have to motivate people, and the only way of motivation we know is to promote. So we keep promoting the fellows every 3 years or so. But of course there are not so many levels logically. See, how many levels could be there in a factory? You have a workman, you have a supervisor, you have an engineer, above engineer you have a manager or departmental head. Manager ought to be head of the department. Let us say a head of quality should be manager quality. Head of maintenance should be quality manager. But we have diluted all these designations. So any new entrant starts with the assistant manager and then he becomes manager. So we have umpteen managers in all departments. And then the head becomes a general manager maintenance or even vice president maintenance, vice president marketing, vice president sales. And many times we keep introducing these levels as we go. Now the problem is, how do you divide the work? How do you divide responsibility between them? It becomes a big challenge. And obviously the roles are overlapping. You can't have separately totally different KPIs for everybody. It will not make sense. Now if you drill down the same KPI, then the top man has sigma of all his subordinates. So what is his contribution? Then that question comes. So it becomes a difficult job to objectively assess their actual performance. That is one problem. And we have simply too many people. So what will they do? They start playing politics, they start playing favorites, they start all kind of things which should not be happening in a flat organization. Okay. So all that happens, and then we have this phenomena that, okay, interdependent targets are there, so you have one quality champion, one safety champion, one champion for human relations, and they keep fighting among themselves. So, in my view, yes, we should definitely optimize the level of managing and level of managers that we have.
Can you discuss the role of technology in reducing the need for management in organizations?
Nowadays, we talk in a big way of data automation and Industry 4 stuff. Now, what was formerly done by managers was they used to collect the performance. Actually, it was said once upon a time that only the workers do the work or the CEO does the work. All the people in between are just messengers. They do just the postman job. Okay. And the more levels you have, the more of postman jobs you have. The more messengers you have. So what they will do, they will aggregate performance data, anything going right, anything going wrong, and report. That's all they do. But with this data automation, there is no need to report. The top man gets all the data live on his cell phone anytime, anywhere, automatically. Now we don't need so many messengers in between. So yes, technology certainly ought to help us in reducing the number of management levels. Why it is required? What do they do anyway? If the machine is able to tell you directly what is happening on the machine, why you have to have a supervisor and assistant manager and divisional manager and DGM, IGM, etc. to just carry the information? Because that's what they did in the meetings, performance review meetings and other meetings. That's what there was their main job. And if there are too many managers, their main job becomes that only, to conduct meetings and discuss. Okay. Now if you calculate their individual hourly rate and the hours which they are conducting a meeting and what is the outcome of the meeting, God knows. So what is the money we are sinking just for the so-called brainstorming session? Whether it is worth it. Probably you may outsource the same activity to a startup for much lesser cost than to indulge into all this. But then the notion was always there that if anything is done in-house, it comes free. I don't know. Because you are not able to work out the cost, so you assume that it is free. Okay. So you assume that you have saved 2 lakh rupees by not outsourcing something and by doing it in-house. But actually you would have spent maybe 10 lakhs in doing it in-house.
Do you think the rise of remote work has impacted the need for management in organizations?
Remote work has become a possibility. In fact, it has been a savior during Corona times. Thanks to the smartphone technology, we were able to sustain the Corona onslaught. Otherwise, we can only imagine what would have happened. Okay. Because of the Wi-Fi, internet, bandwidth that we have, we were able to tide over the situation. Now the thing is, the CPU which is there in this stupid device, is much more sophisticated than CPU which used to be there in lunar vehicle in 1980s by NASA. But that was costing probably several millions of dollars. This is costing maybe 10,000 rupees. You can buy a smartphone with all the features and with a CPU that is faster and has more memory in gigabytes. Yeah, more processing power than that. Now, if the technology has become so cheap, certainly it makes sense to give a SIM card to everything. If we can afford to give a cell phone to our driver, to our maid, why we can't give it to our machine, our cutting tool, our fixture, our dies, our presses, our robots, our automation, our vehicles? It makes sense. That's the main reason, that's the main driver of Industry 4, according to me. So everything interconnected, everything can talk to everything. Of course, we do data security and all. Okay. So now data is easily available anywhere, anytime, to the right person at the right time, just the right data. Okay. So that has certainly transformed the way we work. And that will going further transform further, because there are companies who don't want to call employees to their office anymore because they have got so much tuned to remote working and they find it immensely productive. Because when the fellows came, what did they do? They locked themselves in a meeting room and conducted meeting for a whole day, which was fruitless. Now all that nonsense has stopped. And the productivity is not lost, the results are still there. So it has evolved. This is a better way of doing things going further. So need to manage also will certainly change. You don't have to have somebody, let us say you have an army of people physically working, so you have to have a commander. Gone are those days. Everybody can be monitored remotely. Everybody can be commanded individually when required. Specifically. So all that hoopla has stopped now, whatever used to be there earlier. Right? And if people are working remotely, you have fewer HR related issues, IR related issues, canteen issues, bus issues, all those headaches have gone. Yeah. Personality clashes, ego clashes, because people don't come face to face. They only talk through cell phone. And machines are automatic, machines work. And machines can talk to you through on your cell phone also. So that's the future. So the need to manage, have several layers of managers, gone. And also, the same thing applies to sales and marketing. Most of the time people buy through likes of Amazon and website. Why do you have to have distributor, dealership, network, people to follow up that network? So the game is changing. The way people do shopping, the way people spend has changed totally. So the older ways of working are out.
What advice would you give to young professionals who are considering pursuing a career in management?
My advice is, don't take it as a shortcut to success. Usually why people go to management courses is that they want to defy gravity. There's a law of anti-gravity. You want to rise more, you want to rise faster, then you have to defy the organizational gravity. Okay. One way of doing it is you keep on shuffling the jobs, job hopping from here, there, thereby you are able to defy the organizational gravity in any individual organization, you rise faster. You have to give away this quest of rising fast vertically. Because that doesn't help anybody. And market is also realizing all this. Okay. One day market will realize that what this fellow is doing for so much money, somebody is ready to do for half of this salary also, and you will be equally good. So they will be mercilessly replacing you with that fellow. So gone are the days when people used to get employed for lifetime and keep on rising, keep on floating on top of the organization throughout their career. Now that times have gone now. Those times are gone. Now it is, you have to prove your real worth. And for that, you should not be shy of taking a deep dive. Have expertise. If you can't have expertise, at least get to know people who are experts and learn to get work out of them, learn to deal with them, learn to manage them in a good way, in a harmonious way. Yes, that's the way. And some expertise has to be there. You can't be just a generalist nowadays. It's techno managers. So you have to have some core competence plus managing. Having no competence, just knowing management is no good going further. Some core competence, some solid experience, and then on top of it, you have management. That is great. But just for rising fast, forget that. That will not happen going further.
How do you think management education could be improved to better prepare individuals for leadership roles?
There are certain differences between a leader and a manager. Now, management courses teach you how to manage. They don't teach you how to lead. Okay. And the key differences are that manager has to perform. Leader has to define what is performance. Okay. So leadership has to be rich in the value system, in the vision, in the direction, in the strategic thinking. Whereas manager has to just to manage the numbers, you have to manage performance. Okay. So managers do things right, but leaders do the right things. So what is the right thing in a given situation? And there is no formula for that. There is no cut and dried formula that, okay, you do this, that is the right thing. It is situational. So basically, I feel for being a good leader, you have to have a strong value system, clear concepts, and balancing of various aspects. Okay. What is most difficult about leader's role is that he has to manage the interest of various stakeholders, which will be conflicting always. Now, managing conflicts is a leadership skill, not necessarily a manager's skill. A manager is unidirectional. His KPI, his KPI, his KPI, he will chase that. At any cost, again. Okay. Leadership has to have the concept of what is the right cost for everything. Okay. So, we have to orient our management courses more towards leadership. There is no denying on that. Because leadership remains a positive attribute. Managing has, of course, depending on how we implement it, it could become negative. Of course, it could also become positive, certainly. By no means I am saying that I am not undermining management. Management can be used very effectively, very well, if it is used that way. Well, with this, we have come to the end of today's talk. Please take this movement forward. Please share it with your friends. Open Mind is an engineer's workshop, and our goal is to engineer our future. Please press the bell icon to get further notifications. Please like if you have liked the talk. And please do let us have your feedback, your ideas, your comments, your suggestions. Hope to see you in the next talk, Technocrat Talks. Till then, be happy, enjoy. See you next time. Bye-bye.